to an investigation by Amnesty International, and I'm quoting, Israeli forces have shown a shocking disregard for civilian lives. They have pulverized street after street of residential buildings, killing civilians on a mass scale.
I reject the accusation. We, before starting our military campaign against Hamas, we made a maximum effort, and it's been documented, to encourage civilians to leave the war zone. And we leafleted and we did other things, and the truth is the overwhelming majority of civilians in northern Gaza heeded our advice and moved south out of the combat zone.
Mr. Regev, you talk as if there's places to hide from the bombs in Gaza. You tell people to go to southern parts of Gaza, and then your Air Force bombs areas in the south, killing people there. Where should people go?
There's an answer to that question. We have shared with the Americans and the United Nations specific zones, which are safe zones. They're in the south.
This is totally new to me. When did you share these zones?
A week ago, when we started talking about moving to the south. Because up until now,
a week ago. So you've been bombing for 6 weeks.
Mainly in the north.
Then you provide safe zones?
When you're in a difficult war situation, it's all about managing risk. And so by telling people leave the north and move south, we're actually managing risk. They are much safer in the south than in the north.
90% of the bombs you've dropped on Gaza have been 500 to 1,000 kilograms each, according to military experts quoted by the Times. How can Israel claim that its forces are avoiding civilian casualties, as you say, while dropping tens of thousands of these massive bombs?
So we are bombing Hamas infrastructure. We're bombing Hamas's military machine. We're trying to be as surgical as is humanly possible, differentiating between Hamas, who is our vicious enemy, and the civilians who we're not trying to hurt.
Mr. Regev, have you seen the pictures from Gaza?
Of course. But I would tell you,
does that look like surgical attacks?
But once again, these are targets that Hamas has turned into a war zone.
The war has forced 1.7 million Gazans from their homes. Why won't you allow them back to their homes in northern Gaza?
Because it's still a war zone. And we say when the fighting is over, people can return. Of course they can.
Palestinians in Gaza claim Israel has a more sinister plan of displacing them. Is this true?
Hamas propaganda.
Why then did your intelligence ministry draft a wartime proposal right after you invaded Gaza to transfer Gaza's 2.2 million people to Egypt's Sinai Peninsula?
So we have a large bureaucracy. And the job of the bureaucracy is to produce papers and to think ideas, to come up with ideas. And
why come up with such an idea?
So it's not government policy, but it's the job of people.
Anyway, if you say it's not part of your plan, why?
It's not policy.
But why, if it's not your plan to displace people from Gaza to Egypt, why has your boss, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahу, been lobbying the EU to pressure Egypt into accepting refugees from Gaza, according to the Financial Times?
So we would urge all countries to accept refugees from Gaza. We think that's the humane thing to do.
So you have been lobbying the EU to accept
We've been urging all countries to accept Palestinian refugees, and even if they're just to accept people to go to hospitals and things, we think that's part of our goal, which is not to see innocent civilians caught up in the crossfire.
Why are you oppressing Palestinians in the West Bank? Why are your forces rounding up hundreds of young men, arresting them? Why have over 200 Palestinians been killed in the West Bank in the past 7 weeks?
First of all, there's Hamas across the West Bank. There are Hamas cells across the West Bank who want to commit the sort of atrocities that were committed against Israel on October 7th.
Tamir Pardo, a former Mossad chief, recently said Israel is enforcing an apartheid system in the West Bank. How would you respond to that?
So the factual part is correct. In other words, there is Israeli law for Israeli citizens. And
settlers who are living there illegally according to international law.
We don't obviously accept that, but there's Israeli law for Israeli citizens and Palestinians living there under military law. But if you make one legal system, there's a word for that. That's called annexation, which the international community opposes and most Israelis don't want to do. So what is the alternative? There isn't an alternative. It's like you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. It's not logical.